I completed the initial stage of this program on the 15th of June, 2000, at our home on Maui. It was a wonderful sense of accomplishment. I enjoyed the summer with my family, swimming, hiking, and playing tennis. We had dinners and movies with close friends and precious free time to read and share intimate moments, especially with my wife, Marceline, who was so instrumental in helping me find a spiritual solution to the problem I was about to experience. Little did I realize that in a few short months, I would be called upon to test those principles for a spiritual solution to every problem, firsthand, in my own life. In the autumn of 2000, I was literally brought to my knees while alone in a hotel room. I could barely breathe. My chest felt like it was in a vice. I was sweating profusely and soon was informed that I had had a heart attack. But something was dreadfully wrong with this picture. I don't smoke or drink. I'm not overweight. I exercise every day, and I've done so for over 25 years. I watch what I eat, I meditate, I do what I love, and I love what I do. I have a great marriage, I have wonderful children. I don't do heart attacks. That's for other people who live their lives in such a way as to invite in heart attacks, not me, not Dr. Wayne Dyer. Yet there I was, in the hospital, with monitor wires attached all over my upper body, and with an IV in my arm. In 3 days, I would have an angiogram procedure. For the first 24 hours, I lay there in a state of shock and disbelief. It is called denial. I felt sorry for myself. I refused to acknowledge that such a thing could happen to me. I was, to be honest, scared to death. After that first day, I began to rehash what I had written that you are about to hear. I reminded myself of the title. There's a spiritual solution to every problem. And this surely was a problem. I remembered that I could bring the energy of spirit right here to this hospital room. By doing so, I could actually turn this thing around. The facts were the facts. My heart had been injured. Now it was up to me. I am not this body. I am a spiritual being, eternal, always connected to God. I could shift my awareness to being the observer rather than the victim. It was as if the light came on in a room of darkness. I felt the presence of a higher, faster healing energy almost immediately. I began to be cheerful rather than morose. I circulated around the cardiac ward, attempting to cheer up those who were much worse off than myself. I looked for what was right about that place and experienced gratitude for everything my senses witnessed. On Monday morning, the angiogram revealed a blockage in one artery that may have been a part of my physical anatomy since birth. My heart was strong and the damage was minimal. A stent was inserted in the blocked artery after a balloon poked out the offending plaque. I am now back to my normal exercise and work routine. I decided to share this information with you to illustrate how a seemingly insurmountable problem has a spiritual solution readily accessible. It worked. Trust me. I, Wayne Dyer, know from first-hand experience. Can you make a flower grow? Probably your first response is, such a simple thing to do. Plant a seed, provide sunlight and water, and in time, a flower will emerge. However, I am inviting you to consider who or what generates the life that makes a flower grow. Who or what causes the flower seed to blossom and the tiny embryo to become a human being? Who or what grows our fingernails and beats our heart even as we sleep? What is this force that keeps the planets in place and hurls our world through the galaxy at a breathtaking speed? These questions have been asked for as long as humans have had the ability to contemplate their existence. Spirit is what I have chosen to call the invisible energy, which is the source and sustenance of life on this planet. This force, no matter the name we give it, can solve every problem that we encounter. I will begin by explaining the 3 basic steps to finding your own spiritual solutions to problems. I first read about these steps when I immersed myself in the aphorisms of Patanjali, written sometime between the 4th century BC and the 4th century AD. I will share with you how this knowledge can be applied in your life. You will discover for yourself that these things you have come to label as problems have a solution available to you right now in that world we are calling spirit. Recognizing the availability of an invisible force that can be put to use in solving a problem requires overcoming a great deal of our early training. Do you believe there's only one kind of power or knowledge, which relies on your sensory or intellectual faculties to solve problems? Most of us have been taught this is true. This is a conditioned attitude of non-recognition of our divine connection. In this state of non-recognition, we believe that medicines, herbs, surgery, and doctors are responsible for all healing, or that improving one's financial picture involves the exclusive application of working hard, studying, and sending out resumes. Patanjali described a kind of knowledge or power that is not accessed solely through the material world. Recognition that this power exists and is always available is the first step of activating it. As physical beings, we can make a flower grow, but if we are thoughtful, we realize that we cannot even begin to unravel the mystery of the invisible force that initiates life. Yet it is in this omnipotent spiritual world that we find the solutions to all of our problems. When we incorporate the first step, recognition, we begin the process of accessing this power. In the second step, we go into the phase of realization, where nothing but our own personal experience is trusted. We become an explorer in virgin territory where no one but ourselves can be. Here, only you can validate your experience. I suggest that you begin this process of realization by visualizing the presence you seek. Create an inner picture of yourself receiving divine guidance and banish all doubts about its validity. You will find that your picture dissolves into the reality of a presence that is accessible within yourself. This is realization. It is a personal experience beyond anything related to an intellectual exercise. With practice and desire, in quiet meditation, you will experience this presence. The third step, reverence, is acquired quickly by some people, while for others it can take a long time. Communing quietly with the spiritual force and becoming one with it means there's no sense of separation. In other words, we begin to see ourselves as a part of God. We are in a state of reverence for all that we are. There is a spiritual solution to every problem. I believe the definitions I use for spiritual, problem, and solution can form the basis for a unique way of bringing peace and fulfillment into your daily life. It is my contention that once you internalize these concepts, you will rarely revert to the belief that you face insurmountable problems. I think it is important to see spiritual as a part of physical rather than separate these two dimensions of our reality. It is all one. Spirit represents that which we cannot validate with our senses. The real key to understanding spiritual is this idea of our inner world and our outer world. One world, yet two unique aspects of being human. I have a friend who compares the physical to a light bulb and the spiritual to electricity. When I refer to spiritual, I do not intend it to be synonymous with religious. Religion is orthodoxy, rules, and historical scriptures maintained by people over long periods of time. Generally, people are born into religions and raised to obey the customs and practices of that religion without question. These are customs and expectations from outside of the person and do not fit my definition of spiritual. Spirituality is from within. My personal understanding of spiritual practice is that it is a way of making my life work at a higher level and of receiving guidance. The ways in which I do this involve a few simple but basic practices. I have enumerated them here in my own order of significance. Surrender. This is first because it is the most crucial and often the most difficult. In order to surrender, you must be able to admit to being helpless. In surrender, my thoughts are something like this. I simply do not know how to resolve this situation, and I'm turning it over to the same force that I turn my physical body over to every night when I go to sleep. I am willing to turn any problem over to this invisible force, which is my source, while keeping in mind that I am connected at all times to that source. In other words, the spiritual life is a way of walking with God instead of walking alone. Love. Activating spiritual solutions means converting inner thoughts and feelings from disharmony to love. I use a metaphor of a long cord that is hanging from my hip, and I have the option of plugging that cord into one of two sockets. When I plug into the material world socket, I receive the illusions of disharmony. I feel out of sorts, hurt, upset, anguished, and hopeless in terms of being able to solve or correct my problem. When I am plugged in this way, I struggle to attain false powers. Defining empowerment only in material world terms is a reflection of being spiritually disconnected. When I imagine this cord being yanked from the material world socket and replugged into the spiritual socket, I immediately experience a sense of peace and relief. I can relax and remember that the Spirit is God, which is synonymous with love. Love, and love alone, dissolves all negativity, much as light dissolves darkness by just its mere presence. The infinite. Awareness of our infinite nature is terrific for putting everything into perspective. When I unplug myself from the material and replug myself into the spiritual, I immediately let go of fear, judgment, and negativity. Infinite love is what I receive from that new energy source. An empty mind. I feel strongly about the need for meditation to nourish the soul and access divine assistance. Beyond the actual act of meditation is a willingness to empty my mind of my agenda and be open to what will inevitably come to me. I relinquish my thoughts to the power that Spirit has to make things work. Completely emptying the mind of our agenda leads to forgiveness. Getting to a state of emptiness means ridding ourselves of all blame and all angry thoughts about what has transpired in the past. There is no room for hanging on to who did what and when and how wrong they were. Generosity and gratefulness. Sometimes I feel the necessity to remind myself that we come into this world with nothing and we will exit the same way. So finding a spiritual solution involves doing the only thing I can do with my life. That is, giving it away and being simultaneously grateful for the opportunity to do so. Here's a formula which works for me. I get back from the world precisely what I put out to the world, which is another way of stating the proverb, as you sow, so shall you reap. I recommend your spiritual practice involve being generous and grateful with your thoughts. The more you send out thoughts of how may I serve, rather than what's in it for me, the more you will hear back, how may I serve you? Connectedness. The Sufi poet Rumi once explained that the terms I, you, me, he, she, and they are distinctions that cannot be made in the garden of the mystics. In spiritual consciousness, you view yourself as a flower in this garden and everyone else in the garden connected to you in an invisible way. Our difficulties are something we realize that we share with everyone else. Nurture your sense of connection to everyone and God as well. This allows you to remove your ego from conflicts. This awareness of being a part of everyone allows you to suspend anger toward others and to see them as partners in the resolution of all problems. Know that there are people to whom you are connected who are available to help you find the right job, to solve a puzzling issue that seems irreconcilable, to help you back on your feet, to resolve financial difficulties. Everyone becomes a compatriot rather than a competitor. This is spiritual awareness as I practice it. I try to remind myself in moments of despair of the beautiful affirmation from A Course in Miracles. I can choose peace rather than this. Trust me, it works. And finally, cheerfulness. In terms of outward appearances, there is something noticeable about people who have reached a high level of spiritual awareness. They seem to be in a constant state of bliss. Ask yourself this key question. How do I feel most of the time? If your answer is that you feel anxious, anguished, hurt, depressed, frustrated, and so on, then you have a spiritual disconnect. This could mean you have allowed your personal energy field to become contaminated by the debilitating forces of those in your immediate life space. I often ask myself, how am I truly feeling inside myself these days? If my answer is not so hot or upset, I meditate and go to the quiet place where I can plug my cord into the spiritual outlet. The state of cheerfulness returns almost instantaneously. Every teacher who has been significant in my life has demonstrated this wondrous quality of being able to laugh and to take life lightly. I love Erich Fromm's insight. Man is the only animal that can be bored, who can be discontented, that can feel evicted from paradise. Only you can evict yourself from the Garden of Paradise.